you pull up this chart, everything in this line right here is required on residential 1 through 4 units. The next line is probate trust. The next one is REO and foreclosures. Then you have 5+ units, commercial, industrial, vacant land, and mobile homes. These are the disclosures.
Hey,
Yes.
Nikki, real quick, I'm gonna mute everybody and let you keep going. So let me just 1 second and then unmute yourself, okay?
Okay.
Nikki, are you there?
I'm here.
There you go. Go ahead, go for it.
Okay, so here the agency disclosure, across the board, it says yes, it's required. Area of potential flooding, across the board, it says yes, but this comes in the NHD report. Carbon monoxide detector, yes, it's required in 1 through 4. It says no, it's not required in the probate or the REO foreclosure, but compliance is. Death in the last 3 years, this is covered on the SPQ or the TDS. It's required across the board until you get to a mobile home. So this is a really good reference point. You can print it out. I usually have one that is saved on my computer. It usually comes up better than this. If you want a copy of this, you can email me, or you can just go in and get a copy yourself. But it gives you a pretty good idea of what's required for our office. Okay, so I have here, I just created this file, and it is all of the disclosures that we require for a regular 1 through 4 residential or a duplex file. First one is this disclosure information advisory. This tells the seller how to fill out the disclosures, including the SPQ and the TDS. This is a great form to have because, as we all know, our clients have lots of questions, and you don't want to get into the area where you're filling the forms out for them. The next disclosure is the seller's affidavit of non-foreign status. Okay, we don't want your clients to fill out number 4 with their Social Security number. We don't want that information in our files. We don't want to send that information to other people. What we want them to do is put it in their name and check if they're an individual, and it says I am not a non-resident alien, which means I am a US citizen. Or F is if they're in a corporation, partnership, limited liability company, trust, and a state transfer, and they have a tax ID number. That's all that needs to be filled out in this form, because what it says is that you're going to be giving the buyer a qualified substitute from escrow. A qualified substitute escrow signs and says that they are in possession of the Social Security number. That way the buyer is not responsible for paying the 33 1/3 withholding tax, okay? Next form, as you all know, is the AVID. This is required on every file, except for vacant land, obviously, because you can't really write much of anything on a vacant land. We want you guys to fill these out by sight, by smell, by hearing, not necessarily taste. If you notice a smell, please write it down. If you notice that it's in the flight path, please write it down. If you notice anything that you as a buyer would want to point out or have pointed out to them, write it down. If there's nothing in the room that you can find that is wrong, you can either put a check mark or you can put nothing noted. All of your AVIDs should have this verbiage. The items listed above are what I have observed. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. I do not know what they mean, and I urge the buyer to further investigate. Okay. The next document, I'm going in alphabetical order. If it's a condo or a planned unit development and there's an HOA, please send this form to the Buyers Homeowners Association Advisory. This tells the buyer, or give this to your buyer, how to look at the HOA docs and what they mean. This is a really good resource because as you all know, you haven't lived in a condo before, you don't really know what HOA docs cover, and it's just a very confusing package of sometimes upwards of feels like 400 pages. Really good information. Next, lead-based paint disclosure. Any property built before 1978, this form is required. What a lot of people don't know is the seller is supposed to answer these. They're supposed to say none. If they have no reports, none. If they have no knowledge, none. So there is supposed to be something written in these 2 paragraphs, and you and the seller are supposed to sign this. It is also supposed to be dated. A lot of brokerages and other TCs are pushing back, and they will send these forms back if they are not dated. So make sure that's happening. Market conditions advisory. This isn't a CAR required form, but the brokerage likes us to give this out. It tells the buyer that the market is fluctuating, and just because what you offer something today, it does not mean it's going to be worth that tomorrow, or it does not mean it was worth that 2 months ago. I know we all talk about it, but it's sometimes good to have them sign something that says that information. Okay, parking and storage disclosure. This is required on condos. So again, you'd give the Buyers Homeowner Association Advisory and this parking and storage disclosure. What it says is the seller will check that they have been using parking space number or parking is not included with the property. And then it says the seller would check if they've been using storage space, and then they'd put in the number, or they would check storage space is not included with the property. This is a newer form that's required now. Okay, here is the qualified substitute I discussed earlier. This is what you give to escrow. You'd put in All Coast Escrow here, the seller's full name, All Coast Escrow down here, and then they sign it and you give that to the buyer. Okay. Any questions? I guess I should look at the chat. There's 2 questions. Oh, great info. Christine, that form, if you're talking about the real estate disclosure chart, it's available in the search bar if you just search real estate disclosure charts. Okay. So there's the qualified substitute, statewide buyers and sellers advisory. The only part of this form that is actually a required form is, this supplemental property tax portion right here, number 8. there is a separate supplemental property tax form that is only 1 page, and that is required on all files. However, every brokerage seems to require the statewide buyers and sellers advisory. So that is the one that I give all the time, because if I don't give it, they're just going to ask me for it anyways.
Nikki, I have a question. This is Marisela.
Marisela.
Hi, how are you? How you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Hey, for the storage and the parking, that's a must here in DTLB, no?
Oh, okay. So you are talking about the parking exemption. That is a must as well, but it's not a disclosure. It's more of a report. So that
Okay.
is required. Let's see if you can, I can zoom out to this. Oh, okay. All right. If you go to Google and you say parking impacted.
Okay, that's very important because I know that there was something regarding park. In here, it's very important and I don't want to get in trouble for that.
Yeah. So this is the map. Let me see, hold on.
So you just go to Google. Google.
I just go to Google. Yeah, and this is the map. This will show you all of the parking impacted area. It's a lot of the shore. It's basically these 2 ones up here, people forget about kind of, because those were newer, but it's like everything.
So
basically from Magnolia to Terminal, and then a little further by the traffic circle, and Belmont Shore, and I don't know if that's the Heights or what that is. And it's $110 for the inspection. With a condo, unless they have their own personal garage, it's an exemption form, and that is $32.15.
And we have to call the city of Long Beach, to go and do the inspection for this, right? City inspectors.
Yes.
Okay.
And you need to make sure that when you do that, the garage needs to be empty, or you need to be able to park a car in it, okay?
What, just for a question, what if, people convert their garages into something, and especially right now, a lot of conversions that are not legal.
Right.
What if they converted it and they have a driveway? Is there going to be a problem?
Yes. Unless it's been permitted or grandfathered in, I have had the city make people take it down.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, okay, so statewide buyers, seller property questionnaire. Okay, so you need to make sure when you're sending out this form that the assessor's parcel number is in this form right here, and the county is in this form right here. I know I push it all the time, but if you use the cover sheet and you fill this information in right here, it auto-populates onto all of your forms. Okay. Really important. People are getting super picky, and you don't want TCs or other agents to keep giving you back your disclosures for corrections. It's time consuming, and each time, if it's the TDS or the SPQ that comes back, they have 5 more days to review it. Okay. If the seller is aware of something, they answer yes. If they're not aware of it, they answer no. So you don't need to put, I don't know. You just say no because you're not aware of it. Every single yes answer must be explained. So, whether the property is located in or adjacent to an industrial use zone. If they say yes, they need to explain what industrial use zone they're near. Insurance claims affecting the property in the last 5 years. You can't just write insurance claim filed in 2010. You need to say what the insurance claim is. These are statutory required questions, 5A through K. It means the state requires these questions to be answered. Across the board, those questions have to be answered. If it's a trust after a death, a probate or an REO, they would fill out the exempt seller disclosure, which is just these questions right here. Okay. Alterations, modifications, replacements, improvements, remodeling. I've noticed lately that people just write house was remodeled in 2015. You need to say everything that was done to the property. Okay. On pets and animals, seems silly, but you're supposed, if you check yes, you're supposed to say what kind of pets. Past or present treatment or eradication of pets or odors or repair of damage due to any of the above. If they have Terminex coming every month, they need to say Terminex comes every month. Okay. Condominiums, common interest developments, and other subdivisions. B is almost always checked yes. It should be checked yes. Any declarations or restrictions or architectural committee that has authority over improvements. Okay. CC&Rs are restrictions, codes, covenants, restrictions. Architectural committees, most HOAs, not all, but most, tell you whether you can change the door or what you can hang on your balcony or what you can do with your windows. So this should almost always be a yes. The other two, there may not be proposed dues increases or special assessments, or you may have not done improvements without approval. So just know, I get these back a lot with all the no questions checked. There's usually one question here that it needs to be checked. Needs to be signed and dated, and this will be sent back if you don't explain. Okay. Any questions about this one? All right. Next one is the TDS. Okay, the top of the form needs to be filled out. It needs to be dated. This date right here has to be in there. Every TC I know will send this form back if you don't put in that date. These questions right here, it needs to be checked. This is new to this form, and everybody sends it back if it's not checked. It says either inspection reports pursuant to the contract or receipt for deposit are included with the disclosures, or additional inspection reports or disclosures. So if you're sending over receipts, or if you're sending over your termite report, or if you're sending over the roof report, or if you're sending something from your HOA, you need to check this middle box. If all you're sending is just disclosures and nothing else is being given, you check this bottom box. Every TC I know sends it back if these aren't filled out. And the brokerages I know, same thing. Okay. Believe it or not, oh wait, I need my pen. not giving me my PIN. Okay, right here, seller is or is not occupying the property. I don't know why, that comes back all the time, not checked. It has to be checked. One of the big reasons for this is if it's a duplex, or if it's a flipper, or it's somebody who doesn't live in the property. By checking that, they're letting the buyer know that they might not know every single thing about this property because they don't live there. Okay. All of these boxes need to be checked. I've had a few recently that were sent back because the water supply was not checked. The gas supply was not checked. I've had them sent back because they checked that there's automatic garage door openers, but didn't write how many there are. This form and the SVQ are not things that can be filled out quickly. Jennifer, there is a new form. I haven't gotten to it yet. This bottom part, exhaust fans. Are there an exhaust fan in the kitchen above the oven? Is there an exhaust fan in the bathrooms? There is, you write what room it is in. 220-volt wiring. If your client doesn't know, they just need to write, I don't know. Fireplace, you need to say where it is. If there's a gas starter, you need to say where it is. Roof, type of roof, age. If they don't know the age, they can say, I don't know. Those are sent back the most often because for the longest time with this form, nobody ever filled out that bottom portion. But now the brokerages are requiring it. Down here are the best, are there to the best of your seller's knowledge, any of the above that are not working. If it's not working, just say it's not working. This one gets missed a lot. So make sure this yes or no down here is filled out. Yes, it is amazing when people don't know how old their roof is. For condos, you can just put HOA. I don't know when my roof was put on at my condo. Oops. Okay, this one up here, are the seller aware of any significant defects / malfunctions in any of the following, yes or no? Sidewalks is here. I find it surprising. I know there's tons of, definitely in Lakewood and Long Beach, where the sidewalks are totally messed up. People tend to not check that, which is surprising. Make sure that box is checked and that is filled out. Okay. Another big one that's not checked, number 2, features of the property shared in common with adjoining landowners, such as walls, fences, and driveways. Okay, hardly anybody checks this. Most of the houses around here, around Long Beach, around most everywhere, you share a fence. So number 2 should always be checked. If they're in a HOA, for darn sure, bless you, you need to check yes there. Okay, on condos, number 12, CCNRs or other deed restrictions or obligations, that's a yes. Homeowners association, that's a yes. Common areas, that's a yes. Know that if you have a condo, these 3 need to be checked yes. Know that if you're selling a house where there's a shared fence, number 2 needs to be checked and it needs to be explained. I don't know why, but people are forgetting this little yes, no, I guess because it's too far from the others. But this yes, no for number 16, it's about lawsuits, that needs to be checked. This portion down here is what talks about water heaters and smoke detectors. Because this is now on the form, water heater smoke detector disclosure is no longer required. These need to be dated. Seller signs here, date. You all would click see the attached agent visual inspection disclosure, sign, date, and your company name. A lot of people just have the seller sign down here and the agent sign down here. Every once in a while, I'll have somebody send it to me without this filled out. That's okay, but that just means that the seller and the listing agent have to send it back after they see what the other agent has written above. Okay, any questions? All right, moving on. Water conserving plumbing fixtures and carbon monoxide detector notice. Okay, this tells the people that what the requirements are. It is a state law that you're supposed to have water conserving plumbing fixtures in a property when you sell it, but it is not a point of sale requirement down here. In LA, they have the water cert and the retrofitting, where a plumber has to come and say how many water conserving toilets are in your house. The second portion is about carbon monoxide detectors. We do require this form. Earthquake report. Any property built before 1960 needs to fill out this form. It's questions 1 through 7. They need to sign it.
Hey, Nikki, out of curiosity, it's Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Does this form say on there that date 1960? I'm always curious when you say, you tell us these dates where they're not relevant, if it's after a date, but do the forms actually say that?
And the lead-based paint does say it. The earthquake report says it in the earthquake booklet.
Ah, okay.
So what it used to be is we'd have to give a booklet.
Right. We don't have to do that anymore.
Have them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to, because it's provided in links on the email from the natural hazard people, or you can come over here. I don't know if you guys can see this. I went to libraries, and then you go to EPUB dues, and these are all the booklets right here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's see.
I think with leases you do though, right? Leases do you still, because I remember, or like that recently, well, it wasn't recent, it was like 8-9 months ago, but literally, I think I had to give them something to sign off on as well.
So that's also available here. That was the booklet right there. But if I go back to the EPUBs, page 5 is the earthquake report that I just showed you, or number 5, and number 6 is the receipt. So you can go into your library and go to EPUB dues, and those forms are right there. They're also in the back of the booklets. So this is the receipt for the booklet. You should fill in when the property was built. And then this is the earthquake report that's provided if it's built before 1960. A reason it's not required for things after that is most of this stuff was done automatically by the builders after 1960. Just like with the lead-based paint, after 1978, they no longer made lead-based paint. California actually outlawed it before 1978, but the form needs to be sent anyways. Okay, affiliated business disclosure. This is if you're using All Coast Escrow. This is required. It just is simply a form that your clients need to sign. I need to move it. There we go. Okay. Local area disclosures. This is an outside form. It's the Orange County disclosure. If your property that you're selling is located in Orange County, you need to provide this form. They're building a huge new toll road, I think, from the 605 to the 70, 3, I don't know, but this talks about all of that. So you need to provide that to on properties in Orange County. The home fire hardening disclosure and advisory. This is the new form, okay? This form is required on high or very high fire hazard zones. And the way you find that out is on the NHD signature page and in the NHD report, okay? If the home is not in a high or very high fire hazard zone, you don't need to provide this form. However, knowing brokerages the way I do and other TCs the way I do, it might just behoove you to just give them this form and check the box that it's not located. Okay. If it is located, then your seller needs to fill out, check these boxes. Okay. If it's constructed before January 1st, 2010. So Jennifer, it says right there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a website that we can go to, just like the impacted, like the parking impacted area? I mean, can we go, or is it like the firemen or fire department? Because I know it.
Oh, I lost you for a second. You know, let me see. What does it say right here? It
Because
says,
for the NHD to come out, I mean, it's actually wiser to check. I know, for example, Encino Lake, where I used to live, it's the hills, you know, most of the valley, unless you're, you know, the hillside of the valley, Glendale, all that area.
That's why, so definitely if it's like Glendora, Pasadena, Altaloma, Riverside, portions of the valley, Anaheim Hills, Irvine now, with the fire hazard. Those ones, I would definitely wait, or I would definitely always give this form. Long Beach, we're not really in a high, you know, Lakewood, not really. Seal Beach, not really. I just kind of recommend right now just giving it anyways. And, you know, if you can order an NHD report right away and just tell them you're going to pay it through escrow. I will look and see if I can find a map that shows that. And I might have to contact a couple of the NHD companies or home warranty companies, but sometimes they have issues with giving out a map that says something because it may change. Like nobody would have put Irvine in the high fire zone before, but obviously Irvine had a real problem last year. So I will look into that, and if I find out something, I will have it shared at the meeting. But just know if it's someplace that you know has had fires a lot, they're going to need to fill out this part.
Okay.
Okay. I know it's not a clear-cut answer, but you know, sometimes when they do these new forms, they don't really give us clear-cut answers.
Yeah, I understand.
But I will look into that for you. Okay.
Thank you.
So if the property is a trust after death, I hate saying it that way, but if somebody's just holding the title in their trust, they are not exempt from anything. If a successor trustee is selling the property, they are exempt from providing the TDS and the SPQ. If that is the case, the only form that they need to fill out would be the exempt seller disclosure.
Wait, I'm confused. Is that because they don't know the property, or why would that be?
Yes,
Okay.
because they haven't lived in the property and they may not know all the information.
Okay.
But I want to make a note, if it is a successor trustee that's selling it and they've lived in the property for the past year, it would be better for them to fill out the SBQ and the TDS. Because you know that the neighbor is going to be like, oh, Joe's lived here for a year. And then the buyer's going to be like, why didn't you give us all the disclosures? If their parents lived in the house and they passed away and now it's just them selling it, this is the form that they need to send, you need to send. And it's just those same exact questions that are on the first page of the seller property questionnaire. Real easy.
I'm sorry.
They also need
That form again was called what, Nick?
exempt seller disclosure.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm. The other one you need to provide in that case is the trust advisory. And this is what tells the buyer what the seller is exempt from. Okay. So it says that they're exempt from the TDS. Okay. So the trust advisory and the exempt seller disclosure. If it's a probate, you would use the probate advisory. REO, good luck on getting the banks to fill out anything, but you're still supposed to provide this. Okay. It is common practice on duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes to do a TDS for each unit. It's mandatory to do an AVID for each unit. But it's customary to do the TDSs, but there is nowhere that actually says you have to. The thing about that is if you have a triplex, there's differences in each unit. And if you're trying to explain that all on a TDS, it'll be very confusing. So it is much better to provide a separate TDS for each unit. The seller property questionnaire deals with the property as a whole, so you only need to do one of those. But as far as clarity and disclosing the most, I highly recommend doing a different TDS for each unit. On 5 and above, no TDS is required. And no AVID is required. On a vacant land, there is a vacant land questionnaire, and that is required. So as of right now, these are all the required disclosures for Coldwell Banker Coastal Alliance. There is one more that is required. It is the buyer's affidavit. And this is required on properties that are under $300,000. This is a required form. And when you have this, the seller's affidavit is not required. Okay. I also added the coronavirus entry. This is required every single time you guys enter a property. So the first time you show the property inspection, and the final walkthrough. So unless your buyer never goes to see the property again, you should have in all your files 3 of these coronavirus PEADs, property entry advisory forms. Okay. All right. And then of course, as always, an NHT report is required along with the signature page. Any questions?
Nikki, I have one.
Okay.
I've been having the appraisers and photographers and everybody signing a deed that goes in the house and having the seller sign one every day. Yesterday, the VA appraiser said that they don't need to, and I'm the only one that's asking to sign a deed in the last 4 months. So I was just wondering, I thought it was everybody who comes in the house, but it isn't.
It is actually, it is everyone. The main reason why I said you need to have at least 3 is because just because we're seeing a lot of files where people are only giving 1 PED. So if you represent the seller, you should have at least 3 every time the buyer comes into your property. And if you represent the buyer, you should have at least 3 from the buyer. And yes, you should have one for the property inspector because they're entering the property. And you should have one, yes, from appraisers. I've had some pushback from appraisers, but this basically says that it says all the government stuff, but the buyer and the person entering the property is certifying that they don't have a fever. The initials from the seller and the broker right here, they're not required. The seller has to sign a PED with the listing agreement. And the only reason the seller would sign their own PED again would be if they then got a fever, if anything changed in their health. Then they need to sign a new PED.
Is the, it's Jennifer again, is the PED, I can't remember, is the PED attached now to the listing agreement or is it separate?
No, it's part of the listing. So it's very hard. I'm glad you asked that question. If you type in the search bar right here, RLA, the
Mhm.
RLA CAA right here, it's the second one that comes up. This is required on all listing files. And it's the listing agreement coronavirus addendum is the first 2 pages.
Right.
And then the third page is the seller PED. And then you have those best practices guidelines.
And then you get to the actual listing agreement?
The listing agreement is different.
Oh, okay.
So when I do a listing packet, I do the listing agreement and the coronavirus addendum,
Got it. Thank
the
you.
RLA. Okay. Any other questions?
We are getting you're recording this one, right, Nikki?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And then let me point, I just want to point out, because I've been seeing this a lot, the Megan's Law database disclosure is not a required form. It is covered in both the listing agreement and the purchase contract. You do not need to provide that. It is definitely not a requirement for CBCA. Another thing, additional signature addendum. You have 3 or more sellers. Only 2 people need to sign all of these disclosures. But when you fill out this additional signature addendum, you need to check other and type in all of the names of all the forms. Does that make sense? So I would put in TDS, SPQ, water conserving, WC, MD, and I just keep going and going and going. Every time the 2 sign the forms and the 3rd and 4th or 5th sign as well, you need to state here all of the forms that are signed. So if you're using additional signature addendums, you would need one for the listing agreement. You would need one for the disclosures. You would need a separate one for the purchase contract. You'd need a separate one for request for repairs. You just make sure that you check and you detail everything that was signed. Okay.
So I have the buyers, the one escrow that I closed right now. The buyer in the beginning didn't state that she was, that